All right. So we are now recording, and this will be our fireside chat regarding fundraising with Emily Adams with Washington State University. Feel free to place any questions in the chat at any time, and then we'll be also doing open discussion. So with that, Emily, go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you. So I feel like I've probably met both of you that are here at Know Your Government, although I don't think it was this past year, it was 2 years ago. Just to give you a brief background, I've been with WSU in this position in fundraising for 4-H for 2 years now. And prior to arriving to WSU, I was at the University of Idaho for 10 years and doing fundraising, annual giving in athletics for their annual fund. So prior to this opportunity, I did not know anything about 4-H, and it's been unbelievable, honestly. I have learned so much, and it's been great. It's been so eye-opening, and such a great organization to be able to support and have that opportunity. So I was telling Erin a little bit earlier before we started this, I don't have a presentation. I don't have slides or anything to necessarily share with you, because I'm really hoping this can be more of an open conversation, because I'll wait for Dawn to get on here. Hi, Dawn. Hi, Dawn, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I was just introducing myself, but I thought I'd give you a minute to get on here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Should I be muted during the presentation or not?
Entirely up to you.
Okay, I'll be muted unless I have something to say then. Thank you.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, so anyway, I'd really like this to just be kind of an open conversation with all of us, because as much as this environment is new to you, it's new to me as well. It's probably more so new to you, because even though I can't necessarily go out and meet with people in person, I still have the opportunity to be on the phone, be on Zoom, email, things of that nature. And I know that's very different for your kids and your youth who are used to doing what they do out in the public and being with each other and having that opportunity, and that's very different now. And especially when we talk about access, like we were just talking about, not all those kids have that access to be able to do those things. So it definitely presents some challenges. And so I guess I'd really like to hear from you guys what you've done in the past, what you're thinking about doing now, where you see you have potential, maybe where you see that you have challenges, and then maybe we can talk through some ideas that maybe you have, that I have, and what that looks like moving forward. And like I said, even WSU as an organization is trying to figure out some of those things on our end as well, really logistically. What does that look like? So if you guys are okay with that and having an open dialogue, and I'll just go ahead and open it up, since there's only a few of us, and maybe everybody can take a turn and kind of talk about what their experience is and what they would like to see moving forward. Does anybody want to volunteer to go first?
Well, I guess I'll go first. I look at it a couple different ways. I look at what my fundraising has been previously has been more for events and sending youth to places and giving them those kinds of opportunities. We tended to do a lot of food-based fundraising, which with COVID, that's pretty much not happening. Even some of the other youth organizations I work with, not 4-H, who are maybe going ahead and opening their doors at phase 3, it's prepackaged food only. You cannot, you can't use the same serving spoon, blah, all this stuff. So that really takes all of that kind of food fundraising, dinner fundraisers off the table. So now we have to get really creative. Now for the future, most of my kids aren't going to events this year. Some of the things now that and Emily, you and I were discussing it just a few minutes ago, is maybe more resource allocation for giving youth tools that they may not have, especially youth who are now experiencing financial hardship because of all of this. So I guess that's my tangent of what I have been doing and where I hope to go, and I have no idea how to get there.
Okay. Anybody else want to share?
Well, that's kind of why I'm joining in tonight. Is I've certainly done fundraising for 30 years, but this is a new day, and we need to come up with some new ideas, because I think we're going to be hard pressed to have the normal fundraisers when we can't even have group activities and or food activities. What do we do? So I think as far as some of the programs I'm involved with Know Your Government, or Rachel's getting a group together to go to DC, we're going to have to do a lot more one-on-one to corporations or philanthropists in our local areas. These kids are going to have to get personal.
Yeah.
Grandma and Grandpa cannot support the whole.
I'm gonna.
Nancy, Dawn, any of you guys have anything to add?
Well, honestly, this is really off the cuff because I didn't give it a lot of thought before. I was like, oh my goodness, that started at 7 and I'm not on that call.
Yeah.
But I sort of see our fundraising shifting away from, I guess what I would call like extras, as far as like selling cookies and like kind of like where people are basically making a feel-good donation, to maybe teaching our kids a skill and in small groups providing a necessary service or something like that. And I see that our funds raised are probably going to shift more towards some sort of offering of, I guess, scholarships to events they might want to attend, which might now be financially a little out of reach. Yeah, that's just kind of my off-the-cuff thoughts there. Previously, we've done a lot of, like I said, kind of like the more, I'm using the word frivolous. They're not terribly frivolous, but I think you guys know what I'm saying. Like, extra things that are people are making just kind of a goodwill, feel good donation, aren't expecting a lot. So when people are being more careful with their dollars, I think I'd like to see us providing a real service of some sort to them, or a real product. So and I kind of see it as an opportunity to teach the kids something new, but I don't know exactly what that looks like. So there you go.
First, I need help.
How about you, Nancy?
Well, I'm in a little different, I guess, position, but I guess in the long run, maybe not. I'm a middle manager. I'm no longer involved with just a club, so I'm a middle manager for Benton Franklin County, and I mostly focus on robotics. But beyond that, our 4-H Council in Benton Franklin County, our funds that we use for scholarships within the 2 counties for kids to attend events, which of course the events aren't happening right now, but our account's getting kind of low, which, you know, has made us all think, okay, we need to fundraise. Kind of as a side note, I participated in fundraising for another group by supporting that group, and they had an online auction. And I was really, really surprised at how unsuccessful it was.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if something like that were attempted, because in a way, you know, as far as getting funds, we're kind of limited, which is basically what everybody's been saying. So how do we make something like that more appealing? And of course, you know, everybody is wanting to support certain things like youth having better access, and my career was in education. So I certainly support what's going on with young people and the situation that we're in. And in Benton Franklin County, we're at 1.5 as far as a phase goes. All of our schools are starting online, distance learning, and maybe continuing from there depending on how the numbers are. But of course, we also have many, many youth who don't have opportunities to either stay in touch with their fellow 4-H'ers or, you know, stay in touch really with education too. Everybody's got so much to figure out right now. So that's kind of where I am. I guess I'm just looking for ideas too.
Yeah, and I'm just taking notes, just so you know, so you don't think I'm Googling things. Yeah, you know, that's what I think you were on there when we were talking about this. Is for me now as a statewide fundraiser, I'm very much looking at fundraising through the lens of really access, like what you're talking about, so the kids can continue to participate, not in person, but online or digitally. And what does that look like? And it's really interesting, actually, because prior to this, we were already working with companies, you know, like Microsoft and Avistas and things like that. And, you know, we were talking about this idea, but nothing like what we are now. And like I was telling Aaron earlier, I was having a conversation with a representative from the Avista Foundation, you know, and they are investors in the 4-H program for the 11 counties that they service with a discretionary fund, which is really great. But it would also be wonderful to be able to have that type of funding throughout the entire state and all 39, 40 really counties, to be able to provide access, whether it's internet service, whether it's a computer, whether it's a learning kit that they can do at home, whatever it may be. And everybody is talking about this now. I mean, everybody. And what does this look like? And how can we make it work? So like I was saying earlier, I unfortunately don't have the answers that you're probably looking for right now, but that's why I'm hoping that through this conversation, and I can take notes and takeaways, that I can continue to work with the extension offices, with these companies, these investors that we already have. And then moving forward, actually, I've really been looking into some grant opportunities locally with companies like Weyerhaeuser, the Verizon Foundation, things like that, to try and gain support for exactly what you guys are talking about. In the meantime, in terms of what can you do, what can your youth be doing, since they can't do it in person and those fundraisers, honestly, it's everything that I'm seeing, you know, because we have events, all our events are canceled as well. And really what we're doing is going through training of what do online events. I mean, we've done, like you talked about, the auctions. But it's funny because, you know, a couple of years ago, we tried to get an online auction going because it was kind of a big thing, especially in the cities, you know, where you could actually be attending, but you're doing the auction on your phone. And that's really popular in the city, right? Because you're like outbidding people without having to get up from your table and go write down your new bid. But you know, honestly, for the majority of people, they didn't want to do that. And so again, I think here we are now kind of being forced into that, but none of us are really prepared to deal with it. And what does that look like? And I think now that's what everybody is talking about. So the type of fundraising that you would do and your groups would do and the youth would do, what would that primarily support? Like Erin, you talk about bake sales or whatever it may be. What would that specifically go to support for that club?
Previously for my club, that's money that went to their state trips. If one of them wanted to do a national trip, we actually haven't been fundraising for several years, the Teen Ambassador program, just because we weren't really going we hadn't had a state conference in a couple of years. KYG's pretty much funded a different way. So we hadn't been fundraising for a couple of years anyway. My other youth organizations, it was usually the same. Their version of state conference that they would be spending time fundraising on.
Okay.
And honestly, the fundraiser that did the two fundraisers that have ever done the best in all of my organizations is Butter Braids, which is like a frozen confectionery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which I'm curious to see what that's going to look like, if that's even an option next year. And then Simon Mall, the large mall conglomerate, they have gift wrap.
Yeah.
In the holiday season, and that one has also been a big one. And then the third one is a fireworks stand. So a lot of these big ones that where we make the most money usually involves already partnering with a large organization like TNT, Simon Mall, something like that. But that is also a privilege I have by being in a larger area. You know, I'm not as rural as the rest of Washington State, so still not always an option for a lot of people.
How about everyone else? What are your experiences? And while you're talking and giving me this information, I'm thinking of ideas and.
So for me, my kids, I primarily work with our teens, our leadership youth, and so our biggest event last year was hosting Teen Rally, and we did a 2-day concession booth and then a car wash, and those were our two biggest fundraisers. And then we were fortunate enough to have a local company donate a large sum of money to us, so that was very helpful. But like Peggy mentioned, I am working with a group of youth. I think we have 5 or 6 that will be going with us to Washington, D.C., hopefully next summer, if everything pans out as we hope. And these youth are located across the state, so we can't do just one fundraiser. They're kind of having to do fundraising on their own in groups of 2 primarily. So trying to figure out how to help them best navigate fundraising waters and that kind of thing is my biggest challenge right now.
Okay.
We've certainly had lots of successful, the fireworks stand was horrible, but very successful. And different food type of fundraisers have worked for us. But like I say, I think we're going to have to turn. We've also been successful getting personal donations when people hear about the programs the kids are involved in. You know, we had a family that supported us going to dinner at KYG. The county night out was funded. So the more the kids talk to individuals about the programs, I think that we might get a lot of surprise donations. And especially in times like this where we can't go doing door-to-door type of fundraising. So the problem is that the kids are going to have to put in a lot of personal effort. And that can be a challenge, especially when you're dealing with teens. If you have a whole club with young kids and older kids, it works a little bit easier because the parents are more involved. But with teens, it's just the teens driving themselves. So it makes it a little more difficult.
So these fundraisers and that you guys just referenced, are they primarily put together by the adults and then the youth just show up Sorry, my computer's doing something strange here. I don't know what, but, and now I can't see you.
Some of them are, we've done things like our PUD allows us to come and wash vehicles. We have to sign up, and usually you only get to do it once a year, but that's once you have that appointment, you just make the date with them, and then the kids can organize who's coming and things like that. But with teens, you have to really work with them to get anything done. They need to write the emails. They need to, it needs to be personal. You've got to get the teen working, so.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so it sounds like maybe not used to that personal touch. It's more of being in a sales type environment that's already been set up and for them, and they just show up to kind of do the sales part of it. Is that?
And also a personal touch that still doesn't feel, right now everyone's being asked a lot of them when it comes to money. We have had a lot of things happen this year where a lot of nonprofits are asking, and so making sure that it's not, finding something creative, because an email just isn't going to work right now. Even a phone call isn't going to work right now. There's a whole lot of static in the air.
Yeah.
With our group, we have pretty broad range of ages. We're not strictly teens. And typically the adults have the contacts, and shame on us, but we haven't always let the kids take the reins as far as arranging things. One thing that we've had, it's not going to be possible now, but we had a lot of success with was fundraising through event staffing. We staffed the monster truck rally here locally, and we worked 2 nights. The kids had to be a minimum age to participate and help, but we sold tickets, staffed the door. Some adults helped too, but then at the end, with no overhead, they wrote us a check for $1,000. Super great. One that the kids did take a little more ownership of, as far as not necessarily initially arranging, was babysitting for our PUD, well, Benton REA, so it's not a PUD, but it's the power company locally, had a members day, and they offered free babysitting while they did some other things for the adults. So we did do some of that babysitting, and the kids took more ownership of arranging what activities would be happening with the kids, how we divide up the age groups of the kids that showed up, that kind of thing, if that's helpful. But those are all things that aren't going to be happening until we're meeting in large groups. Yeah, it's a weird time.
Yeah. Hi, Wanda.
Hi. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, it's quite all right. Thanks for joining. I'm Emily, and we were just having a discussion. This is just kind of an open discussion about fundraising, what has been done in the past, what's been successful, but then also what you're struggling with now moving forward, and really where you're needing help. And like I was telling them, I'm somewhat in the same boat and trying to navigate the same waters. And so I'm hoping together through this conversation and taking some notes here that we can all leave, and I can kind of chew on some things and see what I can't provide you all with, maybe something moving forward.
So I wanted to comment that a moment ago, you were talking about fundraising at the county or the state level beyond what I'm used to doing, which is just pretty much the club level. I have to say that I wasn't really aware of how those funds at the county level were raised. I just, for some reason, have been in my own world and didn't give it a lot of thought. But I will say, if our club, for example, knew of the need, and had an especially good year where we accidentally raised more than we really needed, which, you know, we try to project what we're going to need and raise to that, so we don't have a lot of extra. We're not supposed to, but I think if clubs were aware, individual clubs would be willing to contribute to the county or the state level. I don't even know if that's allowed, though. Is that allowed?
It is allowed, yeah, because they're all 4-H funds, so it's, yes, it is allowed. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, and especially only being in this organization and for 2 years, you know, there's so many layers with 4-H and kind of what you're talking about, Dawn. You know, we go from the club to the county to the state, but I mean, there's so many layers even in between that, right? Because we're talking about clubs and club fundraising, and then leaders council, and leaders council is fundraising, and then we have advisory groups, and we have fair groups, and so we have all of these arms off of this one organization, and everybody's fundraising, which makes it a little bit difficult, because from the sense of it feels like everyone's competing, right? And you know, I know that there are a lot of counties out there and leaders councils that have significant amounts of funds in their leaders council accounts, and you know, I don't know if maybe now, and I'm not tied tight to any of these really, because again, since I'm viewed as more of that state entity, I think it's a little scary for people to want to invest in what I'm doing, for fear that that county won't be receiving those funds or that support. And for me, it's really bigger picture of, you know, if we all are supporting each other, and if these leaders councils are supporting the clubs, which I know that they are, a lot of them, but even the excess funds that they have, especially during these times, would be so beneficial and so helpful to so many clubs, and I really hope that that's something that everybody's thinking about. But again, it's, you know, what are the leaders councils doing to fundraise? And I guess maybe is there an opportunity there to partnership between the clubs and the leaders councils? And I know, and again, every single county is different. So even if we, you know, come up with some great idea or plan, that doesn't mean that it's gonna cross over into every single county. So, but I do want to say this, and this is something that I've been on in the last couple of weeks. For the university, are all 4-H faculty and staff phone calls, and then all extension. In the extension, we end up having like 170 people, so all throughout the state that are on these calls. And today we actually just presented this forward fund, which is through National 4-H, and hopefully some of you have heard of that. But it is, what we've done is provided basically an opportunity for all the counties, county offices, to raise discretionary funds for their counties specifically, not the state, but for their county. And it's all online, it's all, you know, social media, email, but I provided all of them with their own link, so that when they send it out and that person clicks on it, it will go directly to their county 4-H fund. And so that way locally they can be supporting. And I think that moving forward, that's really going to be where I think that we can connect. But the biggest thing that I expressed to them was that, and I hear this even in Master Gardener, is that our volunteers are volunteers, and they're volunteering their time, and therefore we are not going to ask them for anything else. We're not going to ask them for a donation or any type of financial support. And while I can understand how that may be uncomfortable, I really have been urging them. The number one reason people don't give is because they aren't asked. And if we are out there asking, and you know, as you guys know, you're volunteering because you're passionate about the program, about the organization. And not everybody financially can support, and that's totally understandable, but some people can. And if they're just, the only reason that they're not doing that is because they've never been asked, we're really missing out. And I think that there's probably a lot of opportunity to be asking our peers, you know, our coworkers, our volunteers that we work with, all of us, myself included, our new Dean of Extension, even she was like, I haven't been giving, send me the link, I'll give. She's really urging everybody. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we can do right now is really get out there and ask, because I think 4-H right now, and we can see it, the numbers are depleting, the volunteers are depleting. It's really difficult. I mean, people are saying, why should I even be in 4-H? Well, 4-H to me goes so much more beyond just in-person programming. And I think you know, I mean, and I think we can still have that connectivity with individuals and people digitally and learn. And I think if the more that we can talk about that and express that with people that we know, the better off we're all going to be. And people will, even though I know that they're being asked a lot, and all the nonprofits are out there right now and really struggling, and I get that. But again, this goes back to that local passion, and I think that we really just need to figure out ways that that we can be asking people and being out there, and they will support. They really will. And I know it's difficult. It seems, you know, for the first couple of months this happened, all of us as a team, the whole university, all the fundraisers, our foundation, was like, oh gosh, what do we do? I mean, we can't go ask people for money right now, you know. And you know, across the nation, I think everybody was feeling that way. And I've been through so many trainings in the last 4 months, and national trainings, and everybody, it's still okay to get out there and to be doing that, because people want to support what's happening right now. And 4-H, why wouldn't, if they're going to support it before, they're going to support it now, probably more than ever, in my opinion. So
Emily, if I could.
Emily, question for you. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Nancy.
So something that I think goes hand in hand with that is to also publicize 4-H. I agree with you. I think there are people out there. I'm thinking in my mind specifically alumni, which I'm an alumni. 4-H runs deep in my family, and I won't bore you with the details, but I belong to a group online that doesn't have anything at all to do with 4-H, but there are a lot of, especially women on this group, who frequently it pops up, oh, I learned about this in 4-H. And they're at least my age or older. And I think that if they knew about the opportunities, and I'm not talking about necessarily through online, but I think if they knew that 4-H still had the capacity, you know, it might look a little bit different, but still had the capacity to really provide a foundation for our young people for their whole life. I think that they would be involved. Taking that a different direction in our own Tri-City area here, one of the things that I would love, and I'm just going to throw this out there because sometimes you never know what you're going to say to somebody that might actually catch a thread. I would love for us to have at least one billboard about 4-H in the Tri-City area. We have over 300,000 people in the Tri-Cities, and the 3 cities are very close to each other, but there's some major highway sections where a lot of people travel within the Tri-Cities to get from one, say, home to work, or we're not always doing as much shopping right now, but I think you can get the drift, where something like that would be just awesome for our community. And I have no idea what kind of an investment that would take, but that, and if we could have some kind of a message that went with it as far as, you know, who's doing this? within Kennewick, Richland, and Pasco, and our outlying area. What are they doing in our community? Does that make sense? And I think that the recognition and the understanding that 4-H is here, as well as many other places in the state. I don't want to leave the other places in the state out, but that's going to really get people's attention. They might not be ready to donate just yet, but if they drive by that billboard enough times and they have some kind of a connection where they could call or email somebody, you know, you never know what might come out of that.
Yeah.
Emily, I'd like to circle back to something you had said.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned how this is the time for the ask and going out and just asking right now. What does a successful ask look like? How do you usually, what frameworks do you usually make sure that that ask is worded or framed in a way for paramount success, basically?
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of a big question because it depends on the platform that you're referring to, right? So somebody that I would more than likely be in front of or talking to individuals or corporations or businesses is going to look entirely different than, say, a youth group or a club that's doing that. And so, and I think that's kind of, you know, what we're talking about right now is how do we transition from the in-person, the bake sales or fireworks sales or whatever, where you're not really asking, you're selling something, right? And so that's a little bit easier. I mean, that's what traditionally we're used to. And so it doesn't feel so in your face, I guess. And now we're saying, okay, well, we don't have that now. Now we really have to ask, what does that look like? And I think that's something that we have to determine. That's something that, for me, everything, as you guys are talking about this, I actually wrote down a couple things because I think we have to ask ourselves, given our current environment and that you guys are in right now, because you could very easily be someone that would be asked to give. If you have a youth group, how would you one, like to be communicated with, and what would you like to see from that youth group that would maybe, that you would say to yourself, oh, I want to give to this. And when I say right now, I mean, you're at home, you have a computer, you have your phone, or you're driving around and you see a billboard. What is it that you would see and where, what platform? You know, I think that's what we have to start thinking about. You know, because even myself, everybody, I'm never on Facebook. I'm not a huge social media person, you know, but, you know, my partner is. He's on it all the time. You know, he's now on TikTok. You know, so we're all different, but what does that look like now? And I think that's what we have to start asking ourselves is how would we find that connection? Where would we see it? And what would drive us to give? And I don't think it's necessarily just an ask, like, I think it's more of that awareness, kind of, Nancy, like what you're talking about. And for me, you know, being on these calls with the extension offices and the programmers, and it's really incredible because I don't know if you guys know this, there is so much out there. There are so many learning kits and tools, and all online. I mean, it's really impressive. And across the nation, and 4-H states are sharing it with each other. And it's so cool to see. And I think the more that we can tell stories, so I think probably the biggest thing that I could see working for everybody is what are your groups doing that you as an individual would say, wow, that's really cool. And that really touches me in a way that I want to donate. And I'm not even being asked. You know, maybe at the end of the video, whether it's on Facebook or if it's a GoFundMe, you know, what is it that the groups are doing that's just really impactful, that would make you yourself, you know, at the end of the video or whatever it is, hit that donate now or contact this person and how you can support. So I think that's kind of what we have to be thinking about, because honestly, I don't think we're going to be in this virtual world, I think, for, in my opinion, a good 6 to 12 more months. And I also think that even coming out of it, this is just going to be kind of our new normal. And I think we need to kind of embrace being online and in that virtual world more so moving forward, whether we really like that or not. Does that kind of make, I know these aren't like firm answers for you of like, you know, here's your toolkit, now go forth and raise all this money. I think this is something that's going to be ongoing.
So, question.
We have a follow-up question from, oh, okay, you unmuted yourself. I was going to read it out loud. Go for it.
Yeah, that's okay. Have you heard of any research or just, you know, knowledge that you're finding about which platforms or how mediums may work better than others for our youth to use? You know, is having our youth creating a video more effective than, you know, sending a letter and then presenting virtually at a group meeting? Or, you know, those kinds of things. Like, and you mentioned GoFundMe. Can our groups do GoFundMe? Is that effective? Or worthy? Because I know they take a certain cut.
I mean, they do, and I guess at the end of the day, you know, they do take a certain cut, and then yes, there's the 5% foundation fee that all donations coming in, although in this case, they won't necessarily be going to the foundation. If I understand correctly, your clubs are separate bank accounts that really don't ever make it to the WSU Foundation. So they do take a cut. I guess, honestly, it's going to be kind of that trial and error. And if that's really your only option, are you better off doing that and having it hit a little bit or versus doing nothing? The letter, I think, is very, again, we're talking about the demographic of who you're targeting. You know, a few years ago, there was a statistic that the age that people responded to a letter in the mail, the average age was 65 and a half years old. And so my point is if you want to send out a mailing, you know, that could be effective. But if you're sending out a mailer to 30 and 40-year-old, 20, 30, 40-year-olds, how effective is that going to be? But if you're...
So what do they like, that age group? I mean, what attracts their attention?
I think you're going to, Facebook is going to be a huge one, digitally. So anything that's online. I mean, I really, really do. Look at what's happening with TikTok. It's crazy. I think anything that you can do digitally. Now, would you say most people have email, right?
Yeah.
I think email for that, maybe the older age group that would respond to the letter and isn't on social media. I think being creative with email. So whether that's maybe a video, something to that effect, and maybe there's contact information on it. And so we could explore, I'll write that down. But again, I would pose that question to you guys as well. You know, what would you respond to? What type of communication right now, being at home, would you respond to, or would you even see?
So, Emily, you probably don't know me very well, but for everybody else in the room who knows me well, you're about ready to laugh because my half-baked plans are legendary at how stupid they can be. But all I can think of is about 8 years ago. And it was during the 2018 crisis when everybody was home for a completely different reason.
Yeah.
You know, nobody was going out. Some of the famous YouTubers did a choose your own adventure where they had like 1-minute videos and then they'd put the little click here's and you had to make your choice and it would send you to another video.
Oh yeah, like the books way back when.
Yeah, exactly. So all I could think of is what if you made a game out of that, and if you lost the game, the last one would bring you into into a donation link. So you had to donate based how far through this, I don't know, quiz you got through. That's how much money you'd have to donate, and you earned your spot on the line, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that sound crazy? But that's kind of what I'm thinking is getting the youth involved and get them to come up with games like that, or even, get our computer kids to program a game. Frankly, Heifer International has gotten very good at creating weird little games, and they had a whole Super Bowl goats versus I think it was honeybees last year, and just making something to gamify giving.
Did you say Heifer International?
What's that? Heifer International? Yeah.
Whoa, that's cool.
So I don't know. That would be something that would stick out. Would be maybe something where it drew you in. It's not just a hey ask. It's like, how well do you know 4-H?
Yeah.
If you fail the first question, you had to give $50. If you get to the last question, you only had to give $5.
Yeah, and honestly, the kids, I think, and the more you can engage them and things that they enjoy doing, which is that, really, let's be honest, the better off everyone really is going to be. And I think we just have to really be thinking a little bit more outside of what the traditional 4-H box would be. It's definitely going to be digital. And I think that some of our programming moving forward is going to be more geared towards that anyway. And so it could all very much tie together. And what I can do too is reach out and, maybe it'd be best through National 4-H to ask the other investor states what they're hearing from their clubs, maybe what they're doing online now for fundraising, successful fundraising online. So I will do that because I think, honestly, there's so much and just really cool stuff that's going on that I can't even keep it all in because there is a lot going on, and but unfortunately we don't necessarily always come together and talk about it. So I'll see if that's something that National 4-H could put out there to the investor states to get feedback on of what's working.
I like your comments about and I mean it's kind of a no-brainer, but it was very good that you brought it up about what do different age groups respond the best to.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially, I mean, we can't do door-to-door phone calls. Nobody picks up their phone anymore either. So we're really down to really two things, and that's email and then online social media type presence.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to be creative in what that looks like. But you can do GoFundMe. And I know everybody else is doing that.
Emily,
but
has the rules changed? Because I was told 2 years ago that we weren't able to use those types of websites according to WSU.
So if you're so this is one of those funny gray areas. If you're going through if you're going through WSU and the funds are going to WSU, then there are a ton of rules involved. But if you guys already are out there and have used it, have access to it, and you're within the guidelines, and then you're fine to use it.
So for example, if we did a fundraiser and created like a club, so this is for the club level, a club PayPal account, money could go to that and that would be totally fine? Legal? If we did online fundraising?
I believe so. I was looking through all the policies and procedures handbooks, that all the different versions that exist out there. And that might be something. I don't see why not, but we may want to just follow up with, like, not Nancy, but Robin, Scarlett, on that question, but I don't know why you wouldn't be able to do that. But I can find out.
Our council set up a PayPal account in order to do a gala event one year. So I know Missy Cummins was involved in it and all of that, getting the account going. So at that time, it wasn't a problem.
So, I know, I'm not sure how long this is supposed to go, but what would be helpful for you guys that I could provide and follow up to this conversation to help you feel like, you know, there is some takeaway from this, and moving, like maybe you have some tool or something to move forward with, or there's something that I can provide you with, follow up with, and provide you with down the line.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what other states are doing that are successfully accomplishing some fundraising digitally.
Okay.
I would love to see some guidelines for virtually collecting money, which you said that you think it's maybe not covered or certainly not prohibited at this point, but maybe guidelines to help us do it in the best way. And also, it probably already exists, maybe some guidelines for using personal accounts versus maybe a club account for sharing some of these things on social media, just to keep things clean. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Not for me exactly. So I guess, so yeah, give me a little more detail on what you mean by using account, between the difference between a personal and I mean, I understand what a club account and a personal account is, but how would you be using them differently?
Well, we wouldn't, I mean, in theory, but if I share something, a fundraiser, share some information on my social media, I'm not worried about it because I know I'm not going to do anything crazy that's going to, you know, shine a bad light on 4-H. But I can say that as a blanket statement for everyone else in the club who might be participating, or maybe youth that are maybe not as aware of how things can be, how things can look on social media. Like just some sort of a guideline or outline for that, versus using like just strictly the club page and sharing directly from that and only a post, you know, directly originating from that. Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Nancy, Wanda, do you have anything you want to add to the list?
Well, Emily, you mentioned that you had kind of been going through different versions of, I guess, fundraising. the guidelines, the Washington 4-H fundraising guidelines?
Yeah, they're more, it's the, like the there's a treasurer's handbook. There's like a policies and procedures handbook. There's a few different ones, and they each reference like receiving funds, fundraisers, things of that nature, but they're all really pretty basic. Like,
Okay.
you know, you should write a thank you and a receipt, but it's not, it doesn't get super into depth of like what Dawn just talked about.
Okay.
Have any of you seen any of these, or is that kind of what you're looking for?
I just made my mind kind of go to a place where, gee, I hope what I've got is
up to date.
Yeah, is up to date. And I try to get updates every year through the extension office.
Mm-hmm.
So for our county extension office. So I'm hoping that's probably the best, most recent information.
That would be your best resource. And for them, I would hope that most of them have that. I just know that if I go out there and Google it or get on our WSU website, that I can pull up a few different versions.
Okay.
But
it's a hassle to go in and try to delete probably versions that are out of date.
Well, when you get 10 years down the road and you haven't deleted the last 3, then yes, it becomes very cumbersome. But if you just did it from the beginning,
okay,
then no. So I know I'm kind of a stickler with those type of things. I'm very organized, almost to a fault. My kids would tell you. So, but I hear what you're saying, and it sounds like it's just more of like, you know, what can we do without getting in trouble, and what's safe. And then also I do understand, you know, these personal accounts and people sharing things on their pages, and who knows what else they have in there, you know. And so I get that, and that makes sense. And so I think it will be helpful to find out what other states are doing that are maybe being successful and that are safe as well. And then following up with, like I said, I don't know why PayPal would be a problem. I know you can do the GoFundMe. And then
so
maybe...
I'd like to ask another question. Would that have to have be signed off on by our county agent? Or
yes.
Whomever, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that I do know that I have seen in all of the versions is that any type of fundraising activity that you are doing, it does need to go through the county, through your 4-H agent.
And I would think too, let's say if your club made a YouTube video, Erin, I know you've been working with the ambassadors to do a video.
Yeah.
Does the final version of that need to be signed off on?
Oh, not only that, it's going to be published through Benton Franklin 4-H on their YouTube page. So of course they're going to get final say.
So there is a set of checks and balances as far as support and, well, support both ways. Yeah. Okay. Accountability. Maybe that's a better word than support.
Yeah, and do the leaders councils, do they have social media, or are they online as well, or?
So I can only speak for the Southeast District because that's obviously this is a Southeast District event, but it's very hit and miss. Some of the counties like Benton Franklin, Walla Walla have very robust pages, Yakima, Kittitas, but then you get others like Garfield, Whitman, they really don't have much of a presence at all. So that's kind of some of the issues we're facing now as an advisory board, talking more overarching, is how every county is so very different on what resources they have available.
Yeah. Because again, I'm going back and thinking, you know, maybe there's a way for the clubs to partner with the leaders councils who have strong online presence you know, what does that look like? Just trying, again, to think really, and I think all of us moving forward really need to think about what does that look like, that online presence, because I think that's really where we're going to make the most impact.
Emily, I just for your point of reference, Benton Franklin County no longer has a leaders council. We have a 4-H council. So all of our officers except the treasurer are youth.
Oh, okay.
So we have members and leaders that attend, whether it's virtual or actual. We had been doing Zoom attendance long before COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
We were doing it before it was cool.
So it's just called council.
Yeah,
And
Benton Franklin 4-H council.
Okay. Is there anything else that I can provide you in follow-up to this that you would like information on?
Well, I'm also on a state committee, which is hosted by Jana. And her last name just went
Ferris.
Thank you, out of my head. And we are working on consistent format schedule for doing leaders training and volunteer leaders training in every county. And so fundraising is one of the things that is going to be covered. We don't have everything nailed down yet. It's a process, especially doing it virtually.
Yeah.
But because we have representatives from all over the state, like a lot of other things. But yeah, so I just was, you know, kind of looking, the two things kind of, both my job as a middle manager and being on the committee and covering fundraising as a part of leaders training. I wanted to have any information possible.
Well, I hope I've been able to give you something to take back. I know the biggest thing that, and again, that I know not everybody wants to hear is I think we really just need to somehow be more creative. And what does this look like virtually and online now moving forward?
Yeah.
And how do we do that? And we're all figuring that out together for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, everybody. I think we'll cut it here just because it's been an hour. If you have any questions, you can contact us at wa4hadvisoryboard@gmail.com. And Emily, do you feel comfortable sharing your contact information in case anybody wants to follow up with you?
Yeah, I was just going to say, in fact, let me give you my email address and my phone number, which actually, Erin, you have it in my email.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you want to go ahead and send that out.
Yeah, I'll gladly do that.
Okay, that'd be great. And, you know, if something comes up, if we hop off the call here and you'll think of 3 to 5 things that you didn't mention. And so will I. Just let me know. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help. And I will for sure follow up with National 4-H and then try to find some better guidelines. And then we'll put our heads together and try and move forward with this. So.
It was nice to meet you, Emily.
Yes, you as well. And thanks for inviting me. And I'm happy to be on again. So just let me know.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
and have a
you.
good night. The recording will be out in the next 24 hours.
Thanks. Good
Thank
night.
you, Erin.